Hello, and in this video, I'll give my fan perspective of what Chael Sonnen says Jose Aldo says, and this is an interesting topic. Stick around if you want to find out.
Jose Aldo's going to fight Saturday, and he's the underdog. Fighting over Brazil, he's the underdog.
If you want to know more about this information, I've linked the video to Mind for Combat's breakdown of Jose Aldo in his most recent upcoming fight.
How many times does that happen? Jose's whole career, how many times have people been willing to bet that he's going to lose? I mean, you could count that on less than 3 fingers, right? So that's not actually the story. The story is Jose will be the co-main event. He was offered the main event spot. He said no.
Amazing. For a champion to refuse the main event slot is the most coveted spot of all combat sports. This is the cover slot. This is something that you put down on your record. Chael Sonnen has gone on record to say multiple times that he himself has not been less than a co-main or a main event in many years. So this is a significant deal for a fighter of Jose Aldo's caliber. Remember, he is considered one of the greatest featherweights of all time.
The reason he said no, even though he wants to fight here, he wants to fight, likes everything about it, he goes, I don't want to fight 5 rounds. Why would I fight 5 rounds? There's no championship on the line. This isn't a contenders fight. Just because it's the biggest fight of the card, I got to fight twice as long as everybody else. Now, you decide if you like that argument or not, but I've been waiting for this one to come. I've been waiting for this one. I think 2011 is when we switched over to all main events, regardless if they were title fights. To remind me of this time frame, every main event was always for the belt. When that
glory days, I have to throw that in there. If you remember when all main events, when all UFCs, even when before they were started becoming number, when they were still like UFC Redemption, something like that. Oh God, that was the best.
That quit being an absolute statement, and it did. Rashad Evans versus Dan Henderson comes to mind. You had these really good and these really big fights, but they weren't title fights.
Chael Sonnen versus Michael Bisping.
Evans, Rampage Jackson comes to mind. For the most part, well over 95%, the title was on the line in the main event. When the shows started to grow, you couldn't do that every time. Eventually they go to, okay, whether straps on the line or not, the main event, the last fight of the night is going to be 5 5-minute rounds. And I was ready for pushback right away. And I know quietly there was, because a lot of fighters said what now Jose is. All these years later, he's the first meaningful fighter that I've heard come out, refuse to do it and speak out on it. You know how much I love team players. I do think he has a point, though. That has always been a strange one for me. Just a strange one. I'll leave it at that. Why would the last fight have to be 70% longer than all of the other fights? Why?
There we go. That is the crux of this video. This is the video which Chael Sonnen has gone on record multiple times about questioning the 5-round for any sort of fight. He states multiple times in many of his videos that 5 rounds is, number one, not conducive to the fighters because then they put their body in additional damage and not allowing them to continue fighting at a regular pace as they would have fighting a normal 3-round, 5-minute contest. Now, Chael Sonnen publicly has said this as a high-profile fighter, but Jose Aldo, who is much, much quieter in his approach, he is a much more peaceful person, much more calm person, a true champion in that sense. Jose Aldo came out and said it, and now Chael Sonnen wants to back that up because he knows the clout behind Jose Aldo is such of reverence and acknowledgement of his accomplishments. Therefore, he's a very decorated person, one of the most decorated of all time. And for him to say that this is not right, I don't want to do that, is huge. Now Chael Sonnen wants to put that out there publicly, and he says, why? Why do the fighters have to fight 70% more? The answer is the same answer of all questions. Money. Now, if you're Dana White, you have a 5-round main event or a 3-round main event. Which do you think you're going to make the most money on? And you're thinking, well, you're going to make the same amount of money either way because the fighter's one is going to win, one's going to lose, whatever, right? No. In between rounds are commercials. There's in between rounds in which there's going to be a little slide on the screen displaying a name of a brand. That is how the UFC makes the crux of its money. That is the beauty of the UFC. That is the beauty of mixed martial arts or any combat sports. The sponsorships. Those are where the money are made. And for a fighter to go out there for an additional 70%, well, let's just say that's going to be a whole lot more money that you have to pay now, don't you? So it always comes down to the money. Does it go to the fighters? Well, I'm not a contract specialist, I'm not a fighter, and I don't know. But what I do know is that somebody out there is getting charged for more time than they would have otherwise.
Who was pushing for that?
Money.
In the world that we were living in particularly, I felt like the message was counterproductive. I just didn't understand it. And I'm not arguing too much as I just didn't understand it, and I still don't. We now live in this world of finished fights. Well, what does that mean? Do we like watching fights or not? If we like watching fights, we don't want them finished. We want more minutes. If we don't like watching fights, we want to see them finished. So which one is it? And now we're going to add 2 rounds and put that on absolutely every card. Also, with almost an underlying threat, if you will, hey, this better not go the distance. Well, why make the distance so far? Why make it so long? It's literally what killed boxing. What killed boxing and made boxing so goddamn boring to watch is that those guys could be out there for 36 minutes. It's too much and it's dull. And the human body isn't made to do it. So those guys go out there and they eat up a whole bunch of rounds. Starting about 30 years ago when boxing started to get on television, the announcers had to come out with a cover story of their feeling each other out. There's no such thing as a feeling out process.
R.I.P. HBO boxing. One of the greatest memories of my personal childhood and probably a lot of fight fans' childhood, HBO boxing.
Those words have never been spoken in MMA or amateur boxing. It's an exclusive term for professional boxing. What's actually happening is both guys have an unspoken agreement. I can't go 12 rounds and you can't go 12 rounds. Let's just burn up the first 5. It killed the entertainment aspect of boxing. I always thought it was very strange that MMA went to it, which brings me back to my original question. Why did we go to that? Was that
money?
A larger deal than we understand in terms of going, these are kind of contenders, the main event, these are usually guys that are getting ready for a title, so we got to break them in, got to break them into that 5-round club? Was it, hey, we have to make the main event different and unique, and this is how we did, which would be a miss, but was that the initial thought? Was it something larger that, look, this is part of the television time slot arrangement?
Exactly, Chael. You already know the answer. That's why you left it towards the end. It's always about money. When UFC went on Spike TV for the first time, that was the first time an MMA organization went on TV, unless you count some like weird kind of, like Elite XC or something like that. But MMA started off, at least in this country, in the United States, it popped off with money by TV, branding. How much money can you make off this spectacle? How many eyes are you drawing to the table? How much time can I get in front of those eyes? How much product can I push? It's always money.
And we've got to have those extra minutes. I don't know the answer. I've never known the answer. But I do know now that Jose has been the first one to put his foot down and push back, that a lot of the fighters go, yeah, this is weird. Why are we doing that? Why do we have to go on for 70% longer? Interesting conversation. I don't know where it's going to go.
I hope that this conversation goes the way Chael's going. I want to see 3-minute contests. 5-minute contest, 3 rounds. 5-minute contest, 3 rounds. That's what I want to see. And that should be for any and all contests. I do agree with Chael. That makes it far more interesting. Now, there are some matchups that are more interesting at 5 rounds. But man, those are few and far between, and it really puts the fighters out. If you want an example for a reason why not to have 5 rounds at 5 minutes, see the most recent fight between the middleweight champions, the middleweight champion actually, Robert Whittaker versus Yoel Romero, and that's a whole different subject for a whole different day. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please, 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 let's stop with the 5 round 5 minutes. Let's get this out of here. Let's get back to some good work. Let's get back to some good contests. I love y'all. Peace out.